Good morning. Thank you. I'm Philip Howard. It's wonderful to, nice you all to come. We have a wonderful group of panelists. I thank them all for coming. It's great to be associated with a law firm like Covington because there are a lot of people smarter than I am in the firm. And the infrastructure project we've been working on for the last year and a half has been done with the substantial help of three Covington colleagues, two former general counsels of EPA, Don Elliott and Gary Guzzi, and also Richard Hertling, who was a longtime Hill staffer. So without their help, we couldn't have done this. Last year, we published a white paper called 2 Years, Not 10 Years. It's out there. And what we found is that a 6-year delay in permitting more than doubles the effective cost of infrastructure. That's a huge number. We could build twice as much infrastructure if we had a permitting regime similar to that of greener countries like Germany, for example. We also found that lengthy environmental review typically is dramatically harmful to the environment. And the reason is because it prolongs the bottlenecks. If it were a terrible project that were controversial, it might not be bad for the environment, but if you're trying to upgrade the grid, the electric grid, or you're trying to eliminate traffic bottlenecks or rail bottlenecks, it's vital that those decisions get made promptly to prevent ongoing unnecessary pollution. Now, as Diana mentioned, no one actually designed the system to work this way. The CEQ regs themselves say that environmental reviews should be 150 pages and 300 pages at the most in a complex project. It's just sort of evolved in this way because no one was making the decisions of where to draw the line and what was needed. And the harm here is not just the two harms I mentioned. Probably the biggest harm, people in the business tell me, is that good projects never get off the drawing board because uncertainty kills financing. It kills the project. People don't know how long it's going to take. So it's incredibly important to come up with a process that the people making the investment can rely upon. What's missing, we think, is actually quite straightforward, and Richard and Diana referred to it, is we need to layer on top of all the improvements like the dashboard and other things, which are quite useful as a platform, we need to layer clear lines of authority. We've proposed, and we have out on the table, three pages of legislative amendments. It's in this piece of paper, 3 pages of legislative amendments to the FAST Act that would give the chairman of the Council of Environmental Quality the authority to resolve all issues regarding the scope and inadequacy of environmental review. In a project like the Bayonne Bridge, which was just raising the roadway using existing foundations to permit a new generation of ships to go into Newark Harbor, one can imagine the chairman of CEQ saying, oh, you're using the same foundations, you're just raising the bridge, just give me 50 or 100 pages on the construction impacts of that. Instead, we had 20,000 pages of environmental review and exhibits over 5 years for that project, which had, most people believe, only marginal, if any, environmental impact. The second change is that we would give the head of OMB the authority to resolve disputes among competing agencies or disputing agencies. One of the problems with modern government, and this is somewhat unavoidable, is you don't get a permit from the government, you get a permit from 24 governments. The Corps of Engineers doesn't agree with the Department of Transportation, which doesn't agree with the Environmental Protection Agency, which doesn't agree with the next agency, Fish and Wildlife Commission, et cetera. So the disputes that inevitably arise there, often for valid reasons, need to get resolved. There need to be balancing choices. Someone needs to have the authority to resolve those disputes, and the people who resolve those decisions need to be themselves accountable to someone who's politically accountable. The chair of CEQ and the head of OMB both report to the president, who are elected by the citizens to make executive decisions, and so our proposed statute does that. It makes a couple of other changes, clarifying standards of judicial review and stuff, But the important point is we're not changing substantive law. NEPA is still there. You still have to have a good faith environmental review. Really important to do that. It's very important to comply with a variety of important laws that impact environmental and other laws over the years. But there needs to be a mechanism to make decisions and move forward. This 3-page statute would do that. And I'll leave by saying President Obama in 2009 had over $800 billion to spend on a variety of stimulus projects. About a third of it was supposed to go to infrastructure. Only a tiny fraction of it went to infrastructure. That's because there was, quote, no such thing as a shovel-ready project. That's a problem of red tape. It's not a problem of money. It's a problem of the loss of authority mechanisms, clear lines of authority and accountability in the current structure of government. It's easy to fix it. We just need the will to do it. Thank you.